Where's the agenda for what we're talking about this morning? Second page. It's a different format. Different format.
Trying to incorporate it into the same format that we have.
Okay, we will get started. Good morning, everyone. It is 9:03. Welcome to our 9 o'clock strategic planning meeting. It's June 27th, 2022. Let the record reflect that all 3 commissioners are present and our executive management team. Our first topic this morning is on the point in time presentation with the city of Spokane and our community services development, our community services division. So let's see, I'm not sure who's kicking off.
I can go ahead and kick it off.
Okay.
This is Jen Saracides. I'm the director at the Community Housing and Human Services Department at the City of Spokane. Thank you all for having us today. We're excited to review some of the outcomes from the point in time count. And with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Daniel Ramos and Shiloh Deese to start the presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Daniel Ramos, City of Spokane. I am the CMIS administrator and one of the data scientists with this project. I'll allow Shiloh and if we have Matt Anderson introduce as well. Shiloh, please.
I'm Shiloh Dietz. I'm with the Spokane Public Library Community Data Coordinator. And Matt, I don't know if he's here. Do you see him, Daniel?
I don't. He might be joining a little bit later. Let's check my phone and see.
Whose name are you trying to request? Oh, there you go. Matt Anderson. Okay.
Matt, if you're here, we are just introducing ourselves.
Yes.
And then I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Anderson. I'm the professor and director of urban and regional planning at Eastern Washington University. Thank you.
Well, let's begin. I'll start by saying we've done this point in time count since 2009 here at the city. It's always with great effort to count the unhoused and those staying in shelters each and every year. The point in time count is a mandated HUD required count of those experiencing homelessness in our COC, which is the Continuum of Care jurisdiction. Those exist all across the nation. And this year's count was on February 24th. Typically, it's the last 10 days of January. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to ask for an exemption. And we, if those of you who remember that last part of January, we had a large spike in COVID cases. So we went out 30 days, and the point in time count this year was on February 24th. And it went for 6 days from the 25th, sorry, I lost my notes here.
It was from the
25th to March 1st. Sorry, a little lag on my end too. From the 25th to March 1st, we did our unsheltered count, which is, I think, the number that most folks tend to be focused on, which are those who are not in shelters or transitional housing during the night of the count. Now, I do want to just make a statement here that the point in time count does not represent all the folks who are displaced. This is a very defined group by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And so we're not intentionally trying to miss anybody or mischaracterize our data. We're in fact just saying we focused on the point in time count, which is a very prescribed count of those experiencing homelessness. So with that, I will say that one thing that was unique about this year is we had a robust count in terms of how we coordinated that. We staged downtown at City Gate, where our headquarters were, and we had an estimated 100 to 150 volunteers that cycled through that 5 days. And we used a gridded map system and sent surveyors out to every section of Spokane County and numerous times throughout that 5-day period of the unsheltered count. Thank you, Shiloh. I do want to say thank you to everybody that participated. That included Spokane County and a multitude of service providers that we work with that are funded through Spokane County and through the city of Spokane. So the way we broke up this presentation, we only have half an hour, so we'll go quickly. What I want to give this group is I'm going to give you the numbers. We're going to have on July 13th a presentation at the Spokane Public Library downtown, the Central Library. Please come. I'll send out the info. That'll be 3 to 5, and we'll go into all of this in much more detail. But today, I think this group is probably going to want to get right to the analysis. So I'll give some high-level counts. We broke this presentation up into the what, which you just heard, the who, which I'll give you the standard point in time count numbers, and then the where and the why and the housing for all, really the analysis pieces. So let's start by giving you some of the high-level counts. If you haven't seen this already in the various press releases, we had a total of 1,757 persons counted in this year's point in time count. And that makes up both our unsheltered and our sheltered count combined. That number is up. A lot of the comparison you're going to see today is from 2020 to 2022, because we did not count the unsheltered in 2021 because of COVID. And we wanted to mitigate the risk of spreading COVID with that. The unsheltered count this year was a total of 823, excuse me, unsheltered persons. Those are those that you think of living on the streets. And Shiloh, if you could go over a couple of highlights here. You can see there that we did not have an unsheltered count in 2021, and the last time we did it was 541. And that 823 number is a 52% increase over the previous years. That previous year. There is some demographic information that we break out, and I think at a high level here, the thing to register is that we have a disproportionate amount of the BIPOC population, Black, Indigenous, people of color, represented in the homeless population compared to our greater population of Spokane. So you're more likely to be a person of color if you're in this homeless subpopulation data. The other high-level counts here that I think are really important that I want to call out to this group, if we go to our veteran population, this is a real bright spot for us. The veteran population represents 11 to 12% of the greater Spokane area, but in our homeless data, they only represent 6%. And I want to thank everyone who's been working in the veteran system for that work. There's been some real gains in reducing veteran homelessness in all categories. And how the HUD report breaks it out is it looks at singles, families, and for veterans, there's no children, but in most every other category, there's a children-only category. So for those of you who have been doing this for a number of years, I know you've seen this data in different ways, but really this is the highlight here, 52% increase in the unsheltered, and veteran homelessness is down in our emergency response system. With that, I want to get straight to the where section of our presentation. I want to thank the great work of Matt, Shiloh, and the grad students who really pulled a lot of this work together using point in time count data. Here again, you're going to see high level those numbers of the unsheltered and the sheltered count. 823, 725 in emergency shelters on February 24th, and 209 in transitional housing. This is a geographic representation of the utilization rates from 2019 to 2022. For the point in time count, this just represents emergency shelters. So those concentric rings there, in 2019, you can see the volume of persons in shelters and the utilization rate that's represented in that pink ring, pink purple ring, is whether or not there was expansion or contraction. And this is really a plug-in for others to do some research here or want to further understand and ask questions on why that would be. Really here, the story is that overall from 2019 to March 2022, looking at our community management information system data, overall, our utilization of the shelter system is trending upwards. And why did we look at that? Well, one of the reasons is to control for whether or not the point in time count on February 24th was irregular. Was there a spike in those staying in emergency shelters? But if you see here, peaks and valleys, but overall on that trend line, that constant line, pretty normal night on February 24th, meaning nothing anomalous here, pretty on trend. Continuing onward here, the unsheltered population. And you can read some of that text there, but we did ask what's keeping you from using one of the regional shelters and check all that apply. And for those who are unsheltered, one of the main reasons they weren't using another shelter was safety, fear of violence, top 3, privacy, 3, anxiety. So you can see there, those are the main reasons folks who are staying on the streets, living in abandoned buildings, living in RVs, weren't accessing shelters on the night of the pit. And here you're going to see another map or geographical geospatial representation of those we counted in 2020 who were unsheltered and in 2022. I don't know if it's what it's looking like on your screen. On my screen, it looks like it.
Yeah, it appears that we're having a load lag, but it simply shows that there's been, we know there's been an increase in the unsheltered population, and that's across the board. And it's kind of a fun slider map. And for whatever reason, it's not loading for me either right now, but we will have it on July 13th. Daniel, do you want me to take these few?
Yes, please.
So then we had a series of questions about where our unhoused population has come from. I think there's kind of a preconception that, people are wondering why are there more homeless in our city? A simple answer might be that they've come from elsewhere and that nothing has changed in Spokane County. But what we found in our data is that the majority of our unhoused population came from Spokane County, 74%. And most of those folks had been in Spokane for 10 or more years. So it wasn't that they came to Spokane and became homeless immediately. And we'll get into a bit more detail down here. Oh yes, we're having some map load issues. I apologize. So this map, it doesn't really matter. The text says it. It visualizes the state where each of the respondents last had stable housing. 86% responded Washington, with Idaho coming in second at 3%. Just as a side note, of that Idaho population, 3%, many of those were from kind of our neighboring communities like Coeur d'Alene. And then among those from Washington State, the majority were from the city or county of Spokane. And then we had a breakdown, and I apologize for the lack of maps here, but we had a breakdown of those from Spokane. We said, where was it in Spokane that you last lived? The largest number last lived in Hilliard, followed by Spokane Valley, Browns Addition, and somewhere else outside the city. So the big takeaway here is that 21% of that population were from the county, but not the city, suggesting really that this is a regional issue, something that we'll have to approach kind of as a wider community, not just the city.
Could you scroll back up? Could you scroll back up a little bit more that had the breakdown of one more right there?
Yeah.
So Spokane County is 8% according to that graph. So city of Spokane was, so I'm looking here, so 70.
And some of these breakdowns are, so it's above is, did you live in Spokane County before you became homeless? Before you became homeless, that's the 74%. And then these percents are a subset. So that is of that 74%, what the breakdown is.
Okay, so of the 74%, 79% were the city of Spokane, 13% were the city of Spokane Valley, which isn't unincorporated county. So the 8%, is that unincorporated county, or is that every jurisdiction other than Spokane and Spokane Valley? Would that include Deer Park? Would that include Liberty
Yes.
Lake, Cheney?
Yeah, so the question
Which are cities? Just not-
the option that they had, so it was neighborhood in the city of Spokane Valley, or elsewhere within the county, but neither of those,
Okay,
if that makes sense. So that's like
It
a
does.
catch-all. Yep,
thank you, thank you.
yeah, yep. So I'm gonna scroll down a bit more. We also asked, oops,
Shiloh, is it
I'm so
worth trying to refresh? I think some of these maps are
yeah, maybe. Sorry, we haven't had issues before, so I didn't even think to check. Maybe this will work. Awesome. So a kind of related question, getting at where are the support networks for these folks? We asked, where is your nearest family member? I don't think I need to get into the weeds here, but essentially we found that the majority had family in Washington State. Many of those, 59%, had family in Spokane County. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. So next, related to where we asked where so this is the unsheltered population only, where they were planning to sleep on the night of the count. And this slide shows a comparison between answers in 2020 and answers in 2022. So we know there was an increase in unsheltered across the board. Proportionally, there were also increases in people living in. So this chart that you see is proportional. Increase in people in abandoned buildings, parks, under bridges. I apologize. That is the 2020. So the major increase for 2022 is the increase in outdoor encampment. Although numerically speaking only, there was an increase in people sleeping on the streets, under bridges or overpasses, and in vehicles. Daniel, do you want to take this quickly? The visibility question?
yeah, I will take this one. Thank you, Shiloh. So one of the things we looked at as we grouped this information was those with substance abuse or serious mental illness who identified as having those attributes, and whether it would cause long-term impediments to them maintaining housing. And of that group, we looked across where they were staying on the night of the point in time count for that unsheltered group. And what we see here is that those that were staying on the street, sidewalk, and parks had the highest prevalence of substance abuse or serious mental illness. And then you can see it tapers down there slightly for outdoor encampment, under bridge, overpass, RV, van, and car. And I think what's important here, the story here, is that the most visible group that most citizens will likely encounter, let's say downtown, are going to have a higher prevalence of these risk factors. And this is, this is more kind of more of an insight, or maybe something thought-provoking, but this is how, an average citizen might experience those. But let's not lose sight that there are many other folks that are in different bands that are not so visible. Shiloh, if there's anything to add there that I missed, please let me know.
Only to call out that this is, and we probably should split them out as well, just so you aren't led astray, but this is substance abuse and or serious mental illness. So these are not counts of people with substance abuse or mental illness on their own. It's one or the other or both.
Okay, and a question I have is on this, you're just showing a percentage, and I'm not sure how this percentage relates to your overall numbers. So it's kind of confusing because I don't, you're saying 64% are people from the street, sidewalk, or park that are identifying as having substance abuse or serious mental illness. And so it's hard to know what those numbers really are.
We have the numbers down below and above. I could pull them, I can work on pulling them up for you, but I think we have such limited time. It might,
Yeah.
But we'll keep that in mind, that we should also note for our final presentation on July 13th, we'll put a note of the number.
I'm noting that Charlotte. Thank you for that input.
And so
Thank
then
you,
I guess
yeah.
I'm checking, so we're not gonna get this presentation sent to us.
This full presentation will be released to the public as like an open source. You can go to the link and explore on your own on July 13th. In the meantime, we'll give you kind of a top line presentation, more the demographics, I think. Daniel, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Daniel, I'm thinking to maybe skip past this. This is showing just real quickly, and it's something that can be investigated further as potentially an actionable item, but we broke out by population of where they're sleeping, the main reasons for not using shelters. The idea being that, say, a group wanted to address those on street sidewalks or parks, it might give some parameters to focus on to make shelters more welcoming or accessible for those populations. So now we're going to get into kind of the meat of the analysis, why potentially we're seeing this. I don't know, Daniel or Matt, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I can.
Matt, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm prepared to speak about this. I'll try and go quick here. I know we only have a few minutes left. So, we know this is a complex issue, right? With many risk factors that make one vulnerable to becoming homeless. So let me try and dissect a little bit of this complexity. So I want to make a distinction between what are called the structural determinants and the individual risk factors, which is primarily what we've been talking about: mental illness, addiction, domestic violence, physical disabilities, and so on. The primary structural determinant is poverty. Poverty automatically makes you vulnerable, as this is the one thing that homeless people tend to have most in common. And looking at the chart here, this people were asked what were the reasons why they became homeless, and they could say a number of things. It wasn't just pick one. So for many people, when you look at the spreadsheet, there people pick 2, 3, or even more things. Overwhelmingly, though, the most cited reason is lack of affordable housing, over and above everything else. And I think scroll down to the next one. Right, the vulnerabilities that you see here. So, and the data here only further substantiates this, right? Poverty being something that's underpinned by basic housing and labor market dynamics. And when asked about, and unemployment there is noted too. But most substance abusers are not homeless, right? Most people who are mentally ill are not homeless. Most people are able to deal with these issues behind closed doors. These are conditions that impact people across the population. But it tends to be those who are poor who are most vulnerable to, and it could be anything, right? A big medical bill, your car breaks down, you get laid off or evicted. Any number of things can happen. You can get divorced. Domestic violence is a big one, and addiction and mental illness are the big one. If you're poor, you're more likely to experience all of these things. You're more vulnerable for these things being what pushes you over the edge and into homelessness. And if you don't have a good support system of family and friends, people who are able and willing to take you in, then just like that, the street might be all that's left. Okay, what are we seeing there? Okay, so these individual risk factors, right, are elevated in the homeless population versus the general population in Spokane County, but this doesn't explain the spike in the unsheltered count in recent years. And I think we have the graphs of opioid and mental illness rates. Is that what we're seeing here? Yeah. So when you look at rates of substance abuse and mental illness in recent years, we haven't really seen a big substantive change. You do see opioid use and overdoses rise since 2000. This is, I think, we can attribute this to COVID, fentanyl, but not to the levels that we had back in the late 2000s when homelessness wasn't as big of an issue as it is now.
3 minutes
The
left.
one, yeah, here we go. Okay, thanks. The one thing that has changed significantly is the widening gap between wages and housing prices. And what you see here is the increase in the average house price, which has since 2016, I think it's more than doubled. The median sales price since 2016 had, back in 2016, I think it was 172,000, the median sales, and now it's over 400,000, right? And rents have just paralleled that as well. Go down to the next one. Here we go. So this is big. What you're looking at here is a chart, a line graph between the Housing Affordability Index, which is sort of a composite score between wages and housing prices. And the higher, above 100, the more affordable the housing market is considered to be. Once it dips below 100, then it's considered to be unaffordable. And what we've seen since 2017, you see the affordability index just drop off a cliff to such an extent that now it's under 100. We're not affordable anymore. And as that happened, you see the increase in homelessness, the unsheltered count, I think is what you're looking at there. And it's almost a mirror image, right? I don't know if I got any of that wrong. They're directly correlated.
That's the overall PIT count.
Overall PIT count, thanks. Okay.
Mhm.
And it speaks volumes about, I think, the role of the housing market in underpinning the surge in homelessness that we've been experiencing. And what you're seeing there is just the continued widening gap between wages and housing prices. And what's essentially happened is that this has widened the number of people who become vulnerable to this. Right, where people who were once able to absorb, mountaining costs or debt or, a medical bill, right, or an increase in rent, 6 years ago, are no longer able to do that. And that the data points to that as being the one big explanation. It's of course not one thing, but that's the one biggest thing that we're seeing. To put this another way, and then I'll stop talking. Since 2016, the same moment, we've seen vacancy rates in the rental market also drop off a cliff, falling from over 4% to 1% or even below in recent years. What's available for rent is increasingly priced for wage earners making above the median household income. So looking at just rent today, if you're making minimum wage, you can afford to pay about $875 a month without being considered rent burden, that being without paying more than 30% of your income. And based on the entire rental market, everything listed on Zillow as of June 14th, there was a total of one property in all of Spokane County that was available for those at the bottom making minimum wage. And further, for households in the bottom 41%, which constitutes over 86,000 households, could only afford 78 of the 325 units that were listed on that day. And for homeowners, we can see how this has changed since 2017. For households in the same income brackets making 50,000 or below, the number of homes affordably priced for this group has dropped precipitously from 2017 to 2021. And we see the opposite trend for households making above $75,000 a year over the same time period. So what's effectively happened here, what you're looking at, is that the market has priced a huge percent of households in Spokane out of home ownership, nearly half of households in the whole county, forcing them into the rental market where vacancies have evaporated as a consequence of this, pushing rents up and leaving increasingly fewer rental units available on any given day. And this is assuming no credit card debt. So this is a conservative estimate by all indications. So the reality is much worse than this, presumably.
Matt, we're at time, but I do want to add one thing to this slide, which is that compression means that folks who are to thread the needle here, folks who are trying to exit into homelessness into the rental market through rapid rehousing projects, through our emergency response system, through coordinated entry, if they're facing what they're facing is even more difficulties in getting into the rental market. There appears to be almost no off-ramp there. And if we could get to that very last slide, Shiloh, I'd like to be able to.
Sorry, I turned off
that.
my screen share.
No,
Just a minute.
that's okay.
Oh,
So yeah, some of you may be asking, why look at home ownership? Well, it's a trickle down effect. And lastly here, just want to leave you with this slide. We all think about solutions and what's actionable. We went ahead and just asked our unsheltered population, what do you need? And that's that middle slide. And the number one response was housing at 64%. And we asked, what were the primary reasons for why you became homeless? Lack of affordable housing on that left slide at 56%. And then we said, what is missing from our current shelter system? 53% said permanent housing. So as we make data-driven decisions here, as Matt brings in the structural determinants, and we ask those who are experiencing this, we see here that lack of affordable housing, all of that is in alignment.
and
with that,
Daniel, it's
go ahead.
hard to read, but that first one is 84, not 64%.
Oh, sorry, 84%, excuse me. With that, we'll open up for some questions. I know we're over time. I want to thank everybody in advance for joining, and please come to the July 13th presentation for more.
Any questions? I guess one thing I think should be added in there is the rent assistance over the last 2 years that has come into Spokane County and the city of Spokane. Just because I think that needs to be pointed out, because that's going to be kind of something that we had all that rent assistance come in. And so to see what happens on the out years after that with homelessness, I think is a data point that needs to be part of that.
Who's speaking?
This is Commissioner Cutie.
Oh, thank you. I think that's an excellent idea. As of now, we're not aware of a source for that data set.
We
So
have
I don't know if that's,
so we have a dashboard. It's our program is through SNAP, and I
Okay.
believe it's Scott,
Yeah, we have a dashboard on our county website.
oh, cool. Okay,
because it's been millions of dollars that have come into the county in the last 2 years to help with that. And I just think that should be kind of showing, because that has helped keep people in their apartments and all of that. And then, Commissioner French can speak to it. I mean, he's very much, we all are big advocates of trying to get affordable housing and doing everything we can to make that happen. So I think he can speak to, sometimes we work hard in the county versus the city to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do want to add that I'll see if I can get some information here from the city as well. I think that could be good to complement. And my understanding is that the fair market rates haven't kept up with the increases in rent as well. So that might be something to note in our presentation. Thank you.
Well, and I think what you'll find is that in the intent of our efforts has been not only to have the most progressive land use regulations in the county. We're actually more progressive than any of the jurisdictions, but we're also working at the state level to try and get more tools to encourage home ownership. For instance, the realtors will tell you that renters are paying more in rent than they would pay at a mortgage payment if their apartment was a condo. And so, condo regulations have been killed by the state legislature in 2011, and we're going to try and work to try and get that reinstated. But there are pathways to home ownership, but we've got to basically get the state to be a partner instead of an obstacle.
I noticed in this year's numbers, how it differed from previous years was in the question of the reason that you are homeless. In previous years, substance abuse was broken down in between alcohol and drugs. Like they were two separate categories. This year it was combined into one with, oh, was it not?
No, we combined it for simplicity.
Okay.
And
Okay,
it wasn't,
because I was gonna say, I think separating it kind of downplays the impact that addiction has. I was going to, I thought you combined it. I was going to compliment you guys on combining, because I think it shows the impact that addiction has, you know, when it comes to homelessness. So I was gonna ask why it was combined, because I think that makes that data point little stronger and shows the true impact that addiction has in homelessness.
And I will
This
add
is-
this. Oh, if I may, Charlotte, just
Yeah,
quickly,
go ahead.
there's some emerging research that just came out of UW that homelessness does accentuate those exact vulnerabilities.
I was just gonna say thank you. You guys are giving us some kind of actionable items. What we've been doing is just trying to be descriptive, and this is helpful for thinking about like what sort of angles might be actionable. And it occurs to me that maybe splitting out alcohol versus drug could be useful in terms of thinking about where to put like support money in either alcohol recovery or drug recovery.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your time. I know we're a bit over, but really appreciate you guys presenting and look forward to getting the entire presentation. So when
Yes.
when you have it available on the 13th, can you send it to our clerk so that way we get it as the commissioners?
Yes, that will just be a public link in the event. We can send you more details, but it's June 13th at the new Central Branch on the 3rd floor from 3 to 5. So we'll have plenty of time to kind of go through it all and answer questions and discussion. So we'd love to have you all there as well if you're able to make it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time today and giving us this information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we adjust today's schedule to allow for conversation on the Feldsfield Airport layout plan. And I'm suggesting that we defer items 2C and 2D and F to tomorrow afternoon so that we can have a conversation about what's going on with regard to the airport layout plan.
As
Which ones were you deferring? I'm sorry, 2C?
1C, I'm sorry, 2C, 2D, and 2F. That would give us a total of 60 minutes. And I don't think there's anything time sensitive about either one of those items.
We'll just get those to tomorrow afternoon then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to defer items 2C, 2D, and 2F to tomorrow afternoon. And we will take up discussion on the Feldsfield resolution.
Yep.
Okay, that will take us now to all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. That will take us to our next item, which will be,
Do we? I hate to be that guy, but since we're actually taking action, do we have to take public comment before we?
oh,
Since
yeah,
we are
Yes.
taking action.
yes.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Okay, so since,
Motion and second.
so we have a motion and a second, we will not declare that vote yet. Since we are going to take final action on changing our agenda, I will open it up for public comment. So if you would like to comment on that, please raise your hand or use *9 or anyone here. Second call for anyone wishing to have public comment on changing our agenda. third and final call? Seeing none, I will close the public comment and I will ask for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
I
Aye, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
C, D, and F are out tomorrow.
One of them I deferred was even mine, so.
Okay, so now, Meg, I'm gonna let you I'll let you introduce yourselves as you come up. Sorry, we're running a little behind.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. I'm Meg Winchester, President and CEO of Business Spokane, and I'm joined by Clute Hosmer. I'll let Gene and Darren introduce themselves with Jared, and we're here to we're here to present the Sports County USA logo.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Jean Clute. Clute Hosmer.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, you're welcome to sit.
We have, I think, something that's going to be shown up here too. Are you in charge of this? Don't go too far. So what we did is we wrote down what we are and what we were going to discuss today and show you so that we can be efficient with our time. So I will cue you when it's ready. Because it's basically one sheet here, and I can give you one of these after we're done if you like. You already have heard the proclamation and the information that Jared had shared previously. So I won't get into that. I'll just jump right to the part about the fun part, which is seeing what the logo looks like and what the brand looks like. Okay. So I'm going to read like a little bit and then I'll say, okay. So, Clute Hosmer, that's us. Clute Hosmer is pleased with the Spokane to present you with the design concept for the Sports County USA brand image that was approved by Jared Webley and Meg Winchester. It was also presented to the PFD and Spokane Sports, where it was well received and obtained their stamp of approval. According to the answers received from the brand identity survey and from our discussion with Jared Webley and Business Spokane, the goal of this new brand image is to represent Sports County USA properly and memorably to specific audiences. And so what that survey was, it went out to Jared and it went out to key people and people at Business Spokane and collected information that set the criteria for the brand and image that we needed to project to the particular audiences we were trying to reach. The logo and brand image needs to be appealing and inspiring to local Spokane residents, convention and meeting planners around the country, sporting event attendees, and regional and national sporting organization decision makers like USA Volleyball's Pacific Northwest Qualifier and US Figure Skating Championships. The logo design should serve as a badge of honor, recognizing and promoting Spokane as the location to host and attend indoor and outdoor sporting events. As described in the online survey and formalized in our discussions, the top three brand attributes Spokane County USA needs to communicate through the selected logo are. And so when you see the logo here in just a second, you'll see these are the attributes we're trying to project. So you'll be able to kind of like think, okay, does it do these things, right? One, welcoming as an outgoing, caring, faith, fun, inspirational, and warm. Elite as in classy, progressive, elegant, high caliber, substantial, and visionary. And three, confident as in serious, trustworthy, patriotic, courageous, and strengthening. And so without further ado, with a drum roll, please. There, and we're going to see a few slides and I'll kind of talk through them after I read this bit. So in this logo design, the shield-like symbol is formed and stylized interpretations of the letter S and C representing Sports County USA. USA is placed vertically on the right side, displayed in red to tie the design together. The mark is strong, dynamic, and bold. It creates a balanced yet asymmetrical presentation, making the design unique. The open space on the right suggests entry and creates alignment with the letter forms. The bold, athletic feeling font and uppercase letters conveys a confident, strong impression, while its blue and red color combinations convey a trustworthy all-American sense to the design. The logo design represents the Spokane region as a world-class location to host, participate in, and attend sporting events of all kinds. The design sets the impression that Spokane is Sports County USA for regional citizens, event planners, sports organizations, teams, athletes, and attendees. Our next step is to continue to build out the brand impression through a brand standards and guideline manual with an informational website. And so if you click through some of these, go to the next one. This is kind of just to kind of show you how it can work in different ways. You know, it might be reversed out of a field of blue or a field of red. There could be a vertical format and a horizontal format for different kinds of applications. So you'll see in the next slide, we kind of took it for a test drive on a few things. On a water bottle, we created a shield-like symbol so it can really stand out on almost anything. So other organizations that might be using it could make it easy for them to use. You put it on a
Where
shirt.
can we buy that at?
I know. I will find out. Maybe Meg has some idea. The t-shirt, you know, just as, because we figured there's probably gonna be a t-shirt backpack, you know, a lot of times, you know, sport backpacks and stuff. And so the next one shows how it might look on a banner. You know, by the way, there's an updated version of this. So when we went with Spokane Sports, we made a little alteration to this. And so if anybody wants to see this, we actually added to the banner the word Spokane down here. Just to kind of, we're going to find places to kind of tie that in and make it be, you know, kind of something that's not in the logo, but something that kind of works around the brand presentation. And then the next one, I think there's one more. So is there, maybe that's it. Okay, well, that's it.
You can pass that around.
Yeah, if anybody wants to see this close up, you can see it here.
I like it.
I like the Spokane at the bottom.
What do you think?
And what one of
The SC Sports County, but also Spokane County.
Right, right, exactly. And most of this will be on something that's Spokane, like on our websites and stuff. And so that's why we try to keep it clean. But then again, on things that are standalone, agree with you on that.
So commissioners, I'd just like to add that it's been a pleasure working with Clune Hosmer and Visit Spokane in this process. Clune Hosmer came up with 5 options and they were all great options, but we sat down for an hour and analyzed each and every one of them and found just, you know, one thing or 2 things we didn't like about certain ones. But we felt like this one did provide the best overall aspect of everything we were looking at. You know, and one thing that we do want to address in our messaging about this is that it's not just organized events. Speaking to the proclamation that that you authorized, we also speak about all the great outdoor activities that we have. And so there will be a focus on that on the website and on the materials and the collateral, is that it's not just high caliber, world-class events that we're having here in Spokane County, but it's world-class recreation opportunities as well. It's just, it was really hard to get all of that into one. We had a couple with mountains in it, but then you put mountains in it and it doesn't portray necessarily that unless you're going after US skiing teams and things like that. So that's why we decided on this, is that the thought of bringing high caliber events to Spokane kind of outweighed the imagery of being able to water ski and snow ski in the same day. But that message is still within the heart of this effort. And I'll just also say that PFD is very excited about using this, and the Sports Commission. They have some plans that I don't feel like I would be the appropriate person to outline, but it comes with an event and a lot of fanfare.
We've all been working together on it.
Yeah.
We have not put any type of a marketing plan together yet because we wanted to make sure that it was a go for this and we could kind of design around it. But know that Visit Spokane, of Sports, PFD, we have all been talking somewhat formally, somewhat informally on this, but we do definitely have some plans on how we're going to integrate, how we're going to hopefully have organizations use this, especially as they come into town, integrate it into their aspects so that we can lift up both organized sporting events, looking at different opportunities to promote our leisure activity as well around this. talked to Josh a little bit about a tread app, which we'll be bringing hopefully to the commission to discuss too. And I see that kind of tying into this as well. Josh, as we move forward, but know that, yeah, this is definitely, the sports commission is really working on it. And again, I don't want to steal their thunder because they're the ones doing it, but we are looking at like a full event type to really launch this and celebrate in Spokane, especially for our residents, mainly for our residents, actually.
No,
Oh, what
very
are we doing?
exciting. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
we're
You,
done.
you wowed us again. You wowed us when you designed the logos for our golf courses. Done it again. Well
Right,
done.
That's our job. That's what we do.
Yes.
There's Doug over there.
So do we need to take a formal motion to adopt this, or is this really now out of our wheelhouse and in the hands of, Visit Spokane and others? I mean,
It is.
what's the next step for us to do?
As long as you guys didn't hate it, there is no next step for us.
Okay.
Because the funding was already provided to Visit Spokane, and this was more of just make sure we got a head nod that you thought the logo was going in the right direction. And the rest will, if that head nod is a yes, then it's green light forward still for Clune, the Hosmer, Visit Spokane, and the PFD and Sports Commission. I see head nods.
And we'll-
Like we did with logos, the golf courses, we created brand standards. That said how to use the logo, how not to use the logo, and messaging behind that. In this case, we're also putting together an informational website too. So people, when they go to the Sports County USA, they will see what it is, what it stands for, and what it's all about.
Yeah, we'll be giving some guidance on how to use the logo as far as some of the organizations. We had good conversations with N Sports about that. Like even at the bottom of their website, or if it's a single page within their website, or for Bloom's Day to be able to like expand on that too, or Food Fest. So we're gonna be working through all of that over the next couple of months, figuring those things out too. So everybody seems really excited about it, who's talked to and shared.
Yeah.
Right, and then what I'd like to do is that we don't have another board meeting until September, but at September or October, have everyone come, Eric's already there, and do a full presentation. And then if you like, we'd be happy to come back and let you all know too, and we'll get you some swag.
I will pay for it
Yes,
appropriately.
okay,
but,
but yeah, that's fine, but we'll get you some swag.
So there you go.
Well, thank you.
Hopefully
Great
that's
job.
Been great.
Here.
And I'm just gonna give Jared a shout out too, as he's been so great to work with through this. He's just been so responsive and so thoughtful and everything. So really appreciate his help too through this. It's been a pleasure to work with him.
A second the motion.
Yeah. Figured you wanted. Great,
Well,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Everybody. Appreciate it.
I hope that was the most favorite presentation of the meeting.
Oh, I only speak the truth.
I'll see you.
Enjoy the 93 degree heat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So then that will take us to Commissioner French.
We can do the other items. Mine can be last.
Probably.
I don't think Matt's here. Well, Matt's not here. It was scheduled at 10:30, so.
They get rescheduled till tomorrow.
Yes, I just talked to him. Okay. Here's a presentation. Yeah, look.
So, well, thank you. So I guess, I'm a little, we by resolution designated me to be the board representative for the airport board. And yet there was a conversation and a series of events that occurred last Thursday and Friday that totally excluded me from any of those conversations. So I'm just trying to figure out what the heck happened. Who did what to who? And where are we heading and stuff? So so it was on the agenda, much like we did in 2018. And the resolution, virtually the same resolution. And so, but then I understand, and I was here Thursday night until 5:30. So it was Steve. And so it wasn't as though I wasn't available. I was here in these offices all afternoon. And yet nobody called me. Nobody said, Al, explain what's going on here. And so that's one issue, but so evidently, according to the email from Gina, you and Josh had issues with the resolution and stuff. So, because I know that I didn't express anything, there's only two of us left, and the email says that two of you had an issue. What's the issue? Nobody has included me in this conversation, and yet I'm the one that sits on the airport board. And so I'm just really at a loss as to what the hell's going on.
So I didn't know this was even on the agenda until after it was pulled from the agenda. When we were at the MAC greeting people, there was a lull, and Scott said that there had been a second agenda, a second resolution added to the agenda that had been pulled. That's when I found out about it.
It's same resolution. There was some work, there was some wording in there. It wasn't a separate resolution, single resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe on Thursday, maybe
And I
incorrectly
may have-
stated, you
I may
said
have
that
incorrectly
there's the one about the plan, and then you said there was a second resolution and that one had been pulled.
Yeah, I missed.
That's all I knew. I didn't know what was on there.
Well,
I didn't say to pull anything.
so according to the email from Gina, which was issued at 4:55, it says, my understanding is a couple of commissioners have further questions on the delegated authority and will be speaking with Larry. Who's the other commissioner?
So Scott and I went over the agenda and I saw that on the consent agenda, that it was approving the Phelps Field. And further delegating our authority. And I just had a conversation with Larry and the team on Monday going over the Phelps Field. At which we talked about the plan, did not talk about further delegating our authority. And so Scott and I talked about it, and I said, well, let's pull it so I can get some further clarification. And then I said, can you send me the resolution so I can read through the resolution? And the resolution states that it is the board that was requesting this. So I called and talked to the board chair.
Instead of me, who by resolution of this board is the representative to the airport.
I cannot call and talk to you because that would be a violation of our open public meeting.
But he can. He can. I was in the office and nobody chose to talk to me. That is not right. That is just not right. You violate our own resolution by doing that. And the document is the same document we already passed, including you in 2018 for SIA.
Yes, I understand that. And I didn't realize that we were giving away our authority into perpetuity.
So what do you think you're giving your authority on?
That we will not see this come before us again.
That's not true. That is not true. That's not what the resolution says. The
Okay.
resolution gives the authority to make what's called pen and ink amendments to the master plan. The master plan, once it's adopted, that is the plan. And it says, here's all the things we're going to do in the next period of time. Any amendments that we do in terms of executing that are what's called by the FAA pen and ink adjustments. So it's just updating the master plan so it reflects those things that you've done to achieve your master plan. But the master plan always comes back to the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council for approval. And it says, here's what we're going to do over the next period of time. We bless it. We every year fund it through the budget. And then we execute on that plan. And as we achieve those goals, we have to update the plan. And those updates of plans are called pen and ink adjustments with the FAA. That's the only thing that we're delegating our authority. And oh, by the way, that's what it says we're going to do in the interlocal agreement that we also signed. The interlocal agreement calls that we're supposed to delegate as much authority as possible to the airport board.
So I'm just asking for clarification. That's all I was asking for. And no, I could not talk to you. So yes, Scott could have talked to you.
God could have called me.
Yes.
And yet,
But
that's-
how I read the resolution, it does not speak to the pen and ink.
that's what I could have provided any one of you if you had
Right.
called me.
But I would still like the resolution to clarify that it is the pen and ink amendments, not Otherwise, I read it that if we're giving away our authority in perpetuity. And which I don't think is anyone's intent.
No.
So I'm just asking for clarification and it should happen for tomorrow.
So why did that then result in a email from the board chair? Evidently coming from one of the other board members to Mr. Collins Sprague, to the attorney for the airport. And the thing that's most problematic for me, and I've got the email. The thing that's most problematic for me is that he specifically excluded the CEO from that conversation. He specifically excluded me from that conversation. I have real issue with board chair on the airport, and he and I will have that conversation. But that, as I understand
I
it,
cannot tell you what Collins chose to do or not do. I called Collins and said, this is a resolution. To me, I read it that it says that the board is requesting. I do know another board member. He didn't have any recollection of requesting that. And so I asked Collins, did the board request that? Because Max was gone at one of the meetings and he didn't know if it occurred at that meeting. So I asked Collins as the chair of the board, did the board request this? And so I can't say what he chose to do after that.
did Collins say that the board was aware of it?
He did not recall at that point in time.
Because he signed the resolution. And so if he doesn't know what he's signing, then that's another issue I have with Mr. Collins.
Well, the resolution 0522 does not request that
But then the agreement that's been sent to the county, though, did go through staff and did go through the board and stuff. So
the interlocal agreement.
no, well, the interlocal agreement is already approved and stuff. That you've got the resolution and then you've got the supporting document behind it. And the board reviewed both of those and stuff. So, or the committee reviewed both of those already before it recommended to the board. So, so at this point, I would like to go into an executive session for the purposes of discussing the performance of a public employee. And would like to be in executive session for at least another 30 minutes. And part of that executive session will include Mr. Simmons, all three county commissioners and our legal staff. And I do not know whether a decision would be made at through subsequent.
Won't be included in that picture.
No. No.
Mr. Amicio.
Or Mr. McLean.
Mark McLean would be the only other person that would be in here.
Okay.
So moving the rest of our executive session to the day as well.
No, we'll be reconvening after this.
Mark, do you have a link?
So it is
I'll send it to you.
10:25 and Commissioner French, I'm going to have you just restate
Fine.
or 10:05, sorry.
That's all right.
I guess you've already stated what the purpose of the executive session for and who's going to be in the executive session. We will reconvene at 10:35. Is there a link? Okay, welcome back. We did extend for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. It's now 10:41, so 6 minutes. No decisions were made and we are back to our regular meeting. And we are joined by Matt Zerkor, our county engineer, and I will let Matt take over.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I think Ron might have my presentation. It's kind of short today. We're gonna have a franchise and then a number of vacations that we're forwarding to the board for consideration. Okay, the first one is a franchise, and this is actually for the Sheriff's Department. And what this is Block Safety is a private party that offers a service of these cameras that get installed on poles. Sometimes our signal poles, sometimes independent poles, but they read license plates. And they also are starting to learn how to identify make and models of cars. So if they had a suspect vehicle they were looking for, it would help them find it. Next slide. This is not a very good map, but it's all we had of where they would want to install the cameras. Obviously, the very central is the urban area. And there are quite a few locations. That's really just the point of this visual, is to show you that they're distributed around the urban area and they would be offered up. You know, these would be available to the sheriff when and if they need them. I don't think they're going to use them all the time, but in an event, if they're trying to find a vehicle, these would help them with that.
And then is it the sheriff's office that pays for that?
Yeah. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning.
It's Justin.
Where would you like? Hi, Justin. How are you? You got perfect time.
Sheriff's office.
Yeah. Justin, I'm Matt Zerkor. I'm the county engineer. We were just talking about the franchise for Block Safety.
Yes.
Yeah, so you got perfect timing. Yeah. And you'll probably be better able to answer some of these questions than I do. We were just talking about where they were going to be located. Do you want to talk for just a second on?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I missed your introduction. Who are you?
Justin Elliott, Lieutenant with Rig 9.
Oh, good.
Investigations.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. But maybe I read, you're familiar, but I didn't recognize you because I don't have cuffs on. So anyway, thank you.
You knew too much about me. I probably get in trouble. So I don't want to get off on any tangents, so please be redirected towards what the best information for you is, because this has been quite a project. This is one portion of our real-time crime center effort. We're also seeking ARPA funds. Been in contact with Arian Schmidt and putting several components of this program together. And the way this started was a pilot program with Flock Safety. There's numerous ALPR or automatic license plate reader companies. And the one that we were working with after vetting some of the other ones was Flock Safety. And our county was a little different to some of the other governments that they worked with in getting their equipment installed. And I'm not familiar with the franchise agreement process or system, so forgive my ignorance on that. I don't know much about that portion of it. I'm learning the stuff that wasn't a portion of the academy. So, so when we talk about the locations, we probably need to have another discussion confirming those locations as well, because what I learned recently in the last month or two was the Valley City Council had a different vision and direction with camera systems being put in their jurisdiction. So we might kind of look at what's the best place to place cameras if they're approved here in Spokane County and the unincorporated areas. So essentially, Flock Safety has permanent cameras, license plate readers, and the same thing that we do with our plate readers on I-90 out of Highway 2 at Hayford, and the radar trailers equipped with ALPR we just got. So the same thing with just a different company. City of Spokane has had cameras on Maple Street Bridge. They're working on getting cameras in their cars. I don't think they're going to do much fixed ALPR. Yakima Police just recently went to Flock Safety ALPR. Has been very successful. Liberty Lake has 19 cameras up right now. I wish I had been more prepared to show you the system if it was important. But they come and they do the installs with their engineers, and with some of our other systems, we purchase the equipment, and then when it goes bad, we have to repurchase new equipment. We have to handle all the repairs. So for example, our Boss Neology cameras on westbound I-90 at Barker, for which we have an agreement with the state. So we have signed MOU with the state, which I think all of you
commissioners sign those. And recently the camera went bad and, we had to use seizure funds to get a new $12,000 camera and spend another $4,000 for install. What we like about Flock is it is a lease, so we've got the recurring costs. I know we cringe at that usually, but at $2,500 per camera per year, it's quite a cost effective, and they handle all upgrades, they handle all installs. They've been one of the better community customer service companies to deal with. So in a nutshell, we want to increase the ALPR footprint in the county to assist in the reduction in violent crime, with be able to solve crimes earlier, save a lot of money on the back end of investigations. Because I had some studies, went to a symposium down at Elk Grove just a few months ago, and got in contact with West Palm Beach. Had some successes. They were able to show the amount of money saved for crime victims and investigative costs, and they had a 23-time return on investment for that. So I'm kind of talking globally with the cameras and real-time crime. Specific to these cameras, what can I answer specifically regarding a franchise agreement with the company and install?
So I guess I'm not really familiar with this type of technology, so maybe my question is not going to be on target. So feel free to correct me if I'm not. But are these cameras, do they have the capability of being able to track or monitor? Like we get these alerts when kids have been lost or handicapped or seniors kind of wander off and stuff. And, the alert will give you the license plate number and model of the car. But, that means you got to be lucky enough to be out there. But is this system such to where if they drove by one of these cameras, you guys would be alerted to that?
Absolutely.
So from a public safety standpoint, that's the win.
Yes, silver alerts, missing persons.
Yeah.
We've got specific examples on kidnapping victims that have been found within a short period of time. And then the way it can combat, the surge in auto theft right now is pretty immense as well.
So this just monitors the license plate. It doesn't monitor who's in the car.
Correct. And I'd like to probably show you the transparency report that they have.
That's okay.
In the slide deck. But yes, what it does is it specifically says they're not using facial recognition for taking pictures of anybody in the car. It takes pictures of the plates, which is out in the public, for which we could see and read ourselves.
So I was on the city council when they adopted the red light cameras. And the biggest objection we got about that was you're invading my right to privacy, because you can see not only who's in the car, but who I'm with. And if it's somebody other than my spouse, that might be a difficult conversation for me to have. Swear to God, that was our biggest, that was where we were getting the biggest amount of complaints with was, I don't want you invading my privacy, and my privacy is the confines of my car. So this does not do that.
No.
Just the license plate. Okay. Thank you.
And it's typically going to get the back of the car.
Yeah.
And it has technology that if they don't have a plate, we can actually search based on the color and make, or a roof rack on the car. And we're moving towards what we call precision policing. We're trying to limit the amount of maybe stopping the wrong people. The traditional approaches to law enforcement, we have an area that's getting hammered with crime is, you go and you saturate patrols, right? This is more, you get very much particularized information on the actual criminal suspect that we're looking for, and it can limit complaints, use of force on persons that aren't the subject of the investigation. And I could go on, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yes, it just gets the plate, and it only keeps it for 30 days. And then it washes it out. And so we have 30 days to identify a crime that we have an investigation, find out that vehicle is related, then we can download it as evidence. Otherwise, it ends up getting flushed.
Okay, thank you.
So with drive-by shootings and all of that, this would be helpful.
Extremely, because we can get a short historical snapshot of where the vehicle's been, at what time. Yes, so for example, Chino Police Department, I've been in contact with them. They have their camera set up so from one end of their jurisdiction to the other, if there's a pursuit of a suspect or carjacking suspect, without having to get directly involved in that pursuit, because we know our constraints are there, they're able to, with their cameras in conjunction with their live cameras. So this part of the bigger project to have PTZ live cameras that we could have an operator that then, you know, gets the plate read, goes to that intersection, picks up the vehicle, and then can direct officers in. And also they can, you know, if the suspect's not in the area or the plate's not there, doesn't match with the information, they're not responding to an area, wasting their time, driving unsafe to get there. And it limits liability exponentially. By arming the officers with something closer to probable cause in this state, trying to rely on reasonable suspicion or a little bit less, and then leads to a force issue, then we've got liability and cost issues on a risk management level.
So then my other question would be is with the franchise agreement, we're allowing them to use poles and that, are they paying a service fee to do that?
That's always part of the conversation. If they're mounting on signals, then it's a conversation with their signal group on, are there additional maintenance or service concerns with it? And we'll work through all those details with them. It's not uncommon that we would charge per franchise if appropriate. It just depends on if there's maintenance on our end, really.
Okay, and then my other question is, if we do that and they are on our equipment, can they sell other things off of that other than just to our sheriff's department? Are there other?
So without reciting from the agreement, but from what I've read, I haven't seen any indication that they're taking that information, sharing it outside of our own agency. Other than like another law enforcement agency can search that database that have access to it. But for selling data, I haven't seen anything in that respect whatsoever. And the conversations I've had.
Because they're selling the data to you.
They're selling the service.
Yes.
Yes, they're selling the service for the plate reader and the software and the upload.
I'm just curious if, you know, kind of the Commissioner French is if we allow them to put the camera on and we know what your agreement is, but if they do agreements with other people, could they be, you know, showing who's in the car and doing different things, or is part of our franchise agreement then specifically limiting them to only this purpose unless we agree to other contracts?
Yeah, it would seem appropriate to be deliberate in that conversation and have that language in the franchise, and we can work with Mark plainly.
Okay. So yeah, so Mark, I would want to make sure that we're very purposeful in this contract and not vague in this contract.
And I think that's where risk management probably can tag in a little as well. And I see Steve taking notes and I know why. So making sure that we're looping them, and since risk should be reviewing all of those contracts to ensure that we have the proper coverages in place.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the other reader contracts that I reviewed did have a no data sharing without first getting consent from the agency.
And I believe you're right. I just didn't want to make that assertion without having looked at it recently.
Okay.
It seemed like a pretty sound contract from my limited contract experience. I defer to Steve on that one.
But I'll go back and check that.
Okay.
I do have a copy of that I reviewed it.
And they do an initial installation cost, and then after, that's the only, when they talk about installation on the infrastructure, there hasn't been any other discussion of costs for us on the sheriff's office side. But I don't know what it would incur with specific type of light standards or whatever.
Well, which would be why I want to make sure too, if we're paying some initial costs and all of that, that if they choose to then, you know, sell different data to other people, that we would be sharing in that.
It would make sense. We'd want to restrict that, and the franchise is definitely the vehicle to do that. We can put language in there.
I would say we also benefit from access to the database from all the other agencies that put their information in there. You know, DEA has a system that a lot of the ALPR data goes into it, and then all agencies investigatively could search that, you know, for plate reads in certain locations. And we do the same thing between North Idaho and us with Neology, which is our current cameras, and the city of Spokane's going with Recore, which is a different. So they're just different vendors. And Flock is also, say, a close partner with Axon, which I think we've already done a lot of business with. And their data goes straight in. The license plate data would go straight into our CAD system, and we'd have access to it within our Axon evidence.com.
These are not photo red camera. These are not going to be used if there's a red light runner to send them a ticket. I just want to make that clear.
I know that's
because
Commissioner French brought that up. I don't want that to
you had
be.
the same reaction.
I don't want that to be what everybody starts emailing us about. We
Yeah,
don't
because
want photo red
if it's going to be red light camera, I want a map with all the locations. I know where to slow down.
And I could share a very short, it's called a council slide deck that it's very informative on this system, and I could send it in. It would answer a lot of questions and fill in some blanks because it's to show how simple it is.
I'm good. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you were here. Yeah, you have a lot more than I do. Okay.
Thank you very much
you.
for coming.
Okay, we'll be sure to share that agreement.
Okay.
Risk and legal and make sure everybody's on the same page, include that language in the franchise.
We thought that we were violating people's marriages, relating everything with all the negative comment we got in red light. Holy cow.
Oh,
was thinking, yeah, you don't want your mistress in the car with you, leave her at home. I mean, my God, it was insane. Anyway, sorry.
I've had discussions with other commissioners about just like, or cameras in general, that's a big concern that they're hearing as well from
Yeah,
their employees.
invasion of privacy and everything else. Yeah.
Okay, you had some road vacations?
Yeah, a few vacations also. First one's Corkery Road Extension. Next slide, please. So you can see this one's actually kind of up on the side of Browns Mountain, east of Carnahan. And you can, next slide. This one was put forward by the homeowner. You can see the existing right of way actually runs through their house. So it was an important one, former county employee, oddly enough. But we looked at this to make sure we didn't need it, because up on the side of Browns Mountain, having multiple ways out during a fire event or getting access for emergency services is always something we consider, but there's not a feasible connection between this right of way and any other adjacent public or private road. So it's not one that we think we need to hold on to. So we would support vacating this one. Is there any questions on this one? Okay, next slide. Next one's Lakeview Boulevard. This one is out on the east side of Clear Lake out west. See here, and there's a old plat along the east side of the lake here that doesn't really fit with what folks have been doing. And you can see on the next slide, what they're proposing is basically a vacation and change. They're going to dedicate the orange strip that actually lines up with the road to the north and vacate the one to the west. And that gives them a more usable lot in terms of their lake frontage and doesn't hurt our transportation needs at all. And the folks around it have said they're in favor of the petition. So that's that one. Any questions on that?
So Lakeview Boulevard really doesn't exist.
You know, there are roads out there and they mostly fit within the right of ways, but it's kind of a hodgepodge. It develops as the lots develop, and that's an ongoing process. I suspect as these continue, we'll get another one to the south that'll align with that orange one better and make them not have those 2 90-degree turns that they're going to have. Because right now on the north side, they have the 2 90-degree turns, and now we're on the south side, we'll have 2 turns. I think as it continues to be built on, because they're lakefront lots, they have value, that we'll see that pattern continue, because people would obviously rather have more of their property towards the lake than away from it.
Okay.
Next slide. This one's Randall Road. Next slide, please. And this one you can see is up on the side of Mount Spokane. It has fairly significant topography to it. You can kind of guess by the way the real Randall Road kind of winds around the north of this right away. Next slide. And this one does not connect to any other right of ways that are buildable for us. That continuation to the west is not something that can be built on. It's very, very steep, very wooded. So this is not a piece of right of way that we see any public value to, and engineer's office would support the vacation of this right of way. Any questions on this one? No. Okay, next slide. This is the unnamed right of way, plat of Spring Grove. So it didn't even get named. And you can see here, this is, you can see the city of Spokane on the east there. It's south of town, and it's a little hard to get to. That Spring Victoria Lane to the north, next slide, is a plat that's been built that has private roads. And again, this right of way is not buildable. It dead ends into the tracks on the east and is very, very steep going through a draw to the west. And we do not see a public need or benefit for it. So we would support the vacation of it.
that triangular piece down there in the bottom, then is that, will that be assimilated with some of the other parcels, or how does it get access, or does it have access to the road to the right?
It doesn't currently have any access, and that's a good question. I can look into that more.
Well,
I believe it's common ownership. I don't know
Okay.
that. I'd want to double check that.
yeah, you might confirm it's got common ownership, otherwise we're creating an island there with no public access.
Yeah, it's infeasible access, but it's paper access at the moment, so I'll look into that and let you know. Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, I believe that's it. Next slide, Rob. Is that it? Okay. All right. That's all
One
I
that's
have.
unnamed right away.
Yeah, they didn't name the right of way on the plat, so
Okay,
it's a right of way that's been dedicated, but never had a name. Never
And
been
then-
established.
And then as long as you're here, I'm just gonna ask you on Chapman on reducing the speed limit where we're.
Yeah, I had replied to Mr. Gass, and what I would propose is try and get it on a briefing agenda for after the 4th of July holiday. We have our paperwork together. I haven't asked Scott for the briefing time yet, but we're ready to go on it and bring it to the board for their consideration. So we can move forward. We'll get our public hearing and notice out. Get that all scheduled.
Because I would like to try to get that done sooner than later, just with the warm weather, people are driving faster. And so it's on Chapman Road out in the valley, going from 45 to 35. And we've gotten a petition signed by the citizens all around it. So and Matt and I met with them, with Mr. Gass, and so feel pretty comfortable that everybody wants it. So yeah, the sooner we can do that, the better.
Yeah, we should be able to make that happen.
Chapman and what?
32nd, I think.
Yeah, it's south of 32nd,
It's
south of 44. Yeah, it's pretty far south. It's fairly rural feeling. All the other roadways in the area, we have explicitly reduced them to 35. And there's two little pieces of road that are outliers that are still 45, and it doesn't fit in the context of everything else we have going on. And the neighbors are advocating for it. They have a petition signed by virtually everybody on that section of road.
Yeah, do you have a?
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of one of those odd ones that didn't get changed, and so the others were going 35. So
Yeah, that's an outlier. It would make sense. Fit better with the neighborhood.
so how much more of a briefing do we need?
That is kind of about it. That's basically if you would like, I'm happy to come back. But that is the presentation.
I mean, it's my district, so I don't know if
No,
you guys are okay with that.
Is that straight away from 32nd to 44?
Yep, it's a straight section in the little piece of Linky, I believe it is, along the north side. It connects back, well, it becomes Linky when it goes north south.
32nd to 44th is 35. It's like when it takes just a little jog and goes further south, right?
Yeah.
That's where it's
From
45.
32nd to 44th, Chapman's straight shot. You're saying it's not that portion?
I think it's the other portion. It's actually south of 42nd.
Can you go,
Oh, south. of
can you look on the screen?
Yeah, and I don't know.
No,
what you're
oh, no,
looking at.
I see it. And there's Linky. Okay. Yeah. Pretty rural area.
Yeah, it
Straight
is straight, and Linky going across.
Isn't that where you take your Tesla and see how fast? you
So,
Sure, say it when the detective's gone.
and it's fairly narrow, kind of like, almost like a Glen Rose feel where it's that narrow.
Yeah, it's fairly straight and open.
Yeah.
There's not a,
So people don't go very fast.
people have to go very fast. It's got the neighborhood.
Okay,
Come
well,
to come visit with us.
I feel like we've been fully briefed.
Okay, sounds good. Well, if the board's supportive of it, I'll move it forward and do notification for the public hearing and get all that going.
Yeah, that'd be great, just since we're gonna be off all next week.
Yeah, we could get notice going now and that'll speed things up.
Be awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I know you're flying solo.
I know, training wheels are off. We're Chad. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You look at Google Maps, you find some amazing properties.
He found a residential compound that looks like, holy cow, it's got that's a chunk of change.
Yeah, it's amazing that kind of what gets, how,
What gets built.
Okay, so Mr. Bart, well, so we have miscellaneous, any miscellaneous matters.
Not for
Because I
me.
think the rest are gonna be executive session.
I think we only have, you, do you have anything?
No.
Just Steve.
And then it looks like Mark's got one. Is that?
Well, I think that's just.
This
a
is our
standing
placeholder.
So-
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yep, just a placeholder.
Okay,
New one is for Steve.
so yes, so any miscellaneous items to come before the board at the time? No, we'll have opportunity tomorrow as we moved a couple of those items till tomorrow afternoon, so we can revisit anything then. So with that then, we are gonna go into executive session. Steve, I'm gonna let you explain the executive session and the purpose and who you'd like there and how long.
Yeah, it's potential or a pending litigation. I think we need Mr. McLean as the attorney. And of course, command staff and commissioners,
And how long do you think it'll?
15 minutes.
Okay, and then after that is over, we will then adjourn for the day. So we will, it is 11:07. We will go into executive session for 15 minutes and we'll be adjourning at that point. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I just wanted to ask Mark a quick question. Mark,
Sir?
we would like to request an executive session with the board tomorrow after 2 p.m. Does the board need to continue anything today? Or are they able to close the meeting off, adjourn the meeting, and then tag that exec session to the end of the consent agenda tomorrow?
You can do it tomorrow, is fine.
Okay, thank you. It is now 11:07 and we'll go into executive session for 15 minutes and then we'll be adjourning after that. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock.